Hi, this is Jen Rubin, and this is Jen Rubin's Green Room. What a state of the union. Wow. Joe Biden, his entire career, has always defied expectations. He's old, he's boring, he's not articulate. Well, he just came out there in fighting form and just punched the Republicans, not to mention Vladimir Putin, in the face. And he was energetic, he was tough, he was in command, he was spontaneous, he was able to, I think, diffuse a lot of the haranguing and the guffawing and the hand-wringing and all the rest of it on the Democratic side, because he was Joe Biden. He is a very tough guy, and he's got a very good record. And by the way, I think they finally hit on something that better describes what they've done, and that is the comeback story, because that reminds people implicitly that things were really bad 4 years ago. Remember, we had thousands of people dying every day. We had COVID. We had unemployment rising. We had inflation rising. So I think it was a good recap of where we've been, of where we're going. And he really, I think, put the screws on the Republicans in two areas that he has to. One is on immigration, and the other is on Russia. And I think you're going to see more of that. I think a lot of Democrats had the attitude after last night, you got to let Joe be Joe. Let's see more of that. Let's see him more out on the trail doing that sort of thing. But I want to focus just a little bit on the losers. Who were the losers last night? Well, I think it would be the ageists who said he's all washed up, he's too old. He used humor. He said that there are plenty of people my age, but some of them have the wrong idea about America. So loser were the ageists. Mike Johnson, he looked like he had eaten something sour. The eyebrows, the fretting, he couldn't bring himself to applaud for a strong America. He looked grouchy, he looked uncomfortable, and he just looked like a diminished person. And of course, he is a diminished person, and he will probably go down as one of the worst, even worse than, I think, Kevin McCarthy, of the speakers of the House. Hard to remember that he is Speaker of the House, isn't it? Another loser, Russia and Putin's apologists. Another loser, whoever Senator Britt's acting coach was. That was a bad moment. But Bobby Jindal, bless his heart, remember how bad his response to the State of the Union was? He is off the hook, because this was outrageously bad. This was horrifically bad. This was overacting and weird and putting the woman in the kitchen. What was that all about? Well, I guess if the right-wing white women vote in Alabama was up for grabs, they've nailed that one down. I think everyone else was pretty much horrified by it. But that goes to another loser, and that was the expectations game. You've had people like Ezra Klein at the New York Times telling Biden to get out of it. You've had people saying, oh, he's behind, he'll never catch up, he should drop out, Kamala Harris should drop out. This is just nonsense. It really is nonsense. And I think what we saw is that there is the image that the press and the very insiders have of Joe Biden, and then there's just Joe Biden. And Joe Biden is a pretty likable guy and a pretty able politician. And I do have to say that the White House played it pretty coy. I think in the lead up to this, we didn't really get a sense of how combative he was going to be. I had expectations. I had hoped he would be combative, but this was like at a whole new level. So a very, very good night, a very reassuring night. And I think the Democrats should breathe a sigh of relief that things are not as bad as the New York Times and Ezra Klein would have us believe. Now, a few other things happened. For one thing, another 275,000 jobs added to the economy. I think Biden calls this the comeback story now, so bravo on that front. More grist for the mill that the economy under Biden is doing extremely well. And speaking about someone whose finances are not in such great shakes, oh yes, the wonderful former president, I say that sarcastically, 91 indictments, had to pony up a bond, secure the judgment while he is appealing E. Jean Carroll's judgment against him. So somehow he found some entity to help him secure a $91 million bond. Well, that it's very nice for Jean Carroll because she knows she's going to get paid at some point. But what about the one that's more like $450 million? Is he going to be able to find someone for that? Well, that's going to be interesting. And it's going to be even more interesting to find out what entity or what person helps him to secure it. Do they live in Saudi Arabia, perhaps? Do they live in the Kremlin? Do they live with criminals? We won't know, really, because we'll see an entity that has secured the bond, but we might not know exactly how that was paid for. So that is a little bit to very disturbing. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't take us back to Tuesday and talk a little bit about Super Tuesday. Nikki Haley is now out of the presidential race, but she, Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney, and oh yes, George W. Bush, who's been very quiet of late, have a moment of truth. What are they going to do? They say they are in favor of democracy. They say they are loyal to the rule of law. But what are they going to do? It's not enough simply to withhold support from Donald Trump. And frankly, it's not even enough to go out there and say, don't vote for Donald Trump. Because we need people to vote for the only one who can win. And that would be Joe Biden. So which of those people, if any, are going to actually endorse Joe Biden? And what's so bad with Joe Biden? We just saw he's tough on Russia. He's tough on the border. He's tough on the economy. He is in charge of a growing economy. He's in charge of a really historic recovery. So what's so bad about Joe Biden that they cannot bring themselves to endorse him when our very democracy is at stake? So I think they are on the spot. And I do have to say, I come back to the one issue that has been consistently underrated, that the Republicans have no one to blame but themselves, and that is reproductive choice, IVF, women. It didn't help having that woman sit there in the kitchen lecturing us, did it? But more importantly, as Joe Biden said, this is an issue of freedom. Not having the government tell you what you're going to do with your life, how to have a family, when to have a family. It's really offensive to a great number of people, not just women. And I think if Democrats recapture an issue that used to be a Republican issue, freedom, and they stick to their tough on the Russians, again, used to be a Republican issue, they'll do okay. And I think we'll be okay. So there's a lot to be relieved about, but really the campaign is just underway. And we would be as misguided as the naysayers were to think that this is now all in the bag and all wrapped up. It's going to be a very long, very bitter campaign. But in the meantime, we may have some trials. We're coming closer every day to, yes, Alvin Bragg's trial in New York, where he's going to have a wonderful opportunity to show us how Trump falsified documents in support of other crimes. So we'll have that to look forward to. Maybe the Supreme Court will even get around to letting us see a January 6th trial. Who knows? We will see. So if you like this program and you like our other programs, please tell your friends. They can subscribe, they can follow, they can click right there and see us on YouTube. They can listen to us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever they get their podcasts. Bye-bye.